GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's a Mark Dolan Tonight GB News 1-year anniversary special, and we will celebrate in style. In the big question, are private schools bad for society? We'll hear from all sides on that one. My Mark Meets is a remarkable young woman. Janet Devlin is a girl who appeared on The X Factor, aged 16. She spiralled into depression and alcoholism as a teen and struggled to cope with the pressure of fame. She tells her amazing story of recovery at 10. Don't miss it. In the news agenda with my panel, should we have a trade war with the EU to save the Union? Also, is there a way back for Prince Andrew? Old Randy Andy, what do you think? And is it ever too late to start a new career? Also, an MP got in trouble this week for calling several British towns god-awful. Is it okay to call British towns god-awful? Reacting to those stories and many more on my amazing panel tonight of the legendary political double act, Neil and Christine Hamilton, and top TV personality, a brand new star for this show, Nicola McLean. And in my big opinion, my thoughts about GB News as it celebrates a year on air. They tried to cancel us, but we're still here and we are growing. And do you remember the bumpy start we had? All the technical problems? Well, I'm pleased to say that we've got that sorted, I think. You won't find technical problems here. The production value couldn't be better. Things never go wrong. Well, almost never. A very busy show. We don't do boring. Here are the headlines. Let's go to the news.
Mark, thank you. I'm Polly Middlehurst with the latest top stories. And the main news tonight, a former British soldier has been killed fighting Russian forces in Ukraine. Jordan Gatli's family says he was shot in the eastern city of Severodonetsk. He'd left the British Army in March. In a statement on social media, his parents described him as a hero, saying after careful consideration, he went to Ukraine to help. They added that both Jordan and his team were proud of the work they were doing and that the missions they were going on were dangerous but necessary. Also in the news today, protests have been taking place outside an immigration removal centre near Gatwick Airport.
Refugees are welcome here.
It comes as the government prepares to deport the first group of asylum seekers to Africa. The demonstrators shook the outer fence of the facility while people inside chanted, No Rwanda. An appeal against a ruling which allowed a flight to go ahead on Tuesday will be heard at the High Court tomorrow. Unions have criticised a potential government plan to change the law allowing agency workers to cover for striking staff. Major travel chaos is expected later this month after railway workers voted overwhelmingly in favour of industrial action in a dispute over pay, pensions and conditions. Writing in the Sun on Sunday newspaper, the Transport Secretary Grant Shapps said they could also be banned from working overtime to make up for lost earnings during the strike. Labour is calling for greater transparency ahead of the introduction of new legislation on the Northern Ireland Protocol. The party wants the government's legal advice to be published. That comes after the Northern Ireland Secretary, Brandon Lewis, said the new bill, which gives ministers powers to scrap elements of the agreement, will not be in breach of international law. The Business Secretary has ordered an urgent investigation into petrol station operators. It follows concerns that some of them may be failing to pass on fuel duty cuts. In a letter to the Competition and Markets Authority, Kwasi Kwarteng said drivers are rightly frustrated that the 5 pence a litre reduction hasn't stopped prices from rising. And in the United States tonight, senators look close to agreeing a framework for tougher gun safety legislation. The plan has now received enough support from Republicans to pass through the Senate. The move comes after tens of thousands of people rallied across the country. If it's passed by Congress, it would mark the first significant new gun law in decades in the States. Veterans of the Falklands War have marked its 40th anniversary with a service of remembrance in Blackpool. Members of the Tumbledown Veterans and Families Association marched to the Cenotaph in Blackpool to remember those who lost their lives at the Battle of Mount Tumbledown. Many had served in the 2nd Battalion Scotch Guards. The successful mission ultimately played an important part in Argentina's surrender. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, where now it's time for Mark Dolan Tonight.
Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight on a packed Sunday night show. Our first anniversary special. My Mark Meets guest is the remarkable Janet Devlin. This is a girl who appeared on X Factor aged 16. She spiralled into depression and alcoholism as a teen and struggled to cope with the pressures of fame. She tells her incredible story of recovery at 10. In the news agenda with my panel, should we have a trade war with the EU to save the Union? Is there a way back for Prince Andrew? Is it ever too late to start a new career? And is it ever okay to call British towns god-awful? If so, which towns in Britain are god-awful? Let me know. With me throughout the show is my brilliant all-star panel of UKIP leader Neil Hamilton, writer and political commentator Christine Hamilton, and the brilliant broadcaster and TV personality from I'm a Celebrity and so many other big hits, Nicola McLean. Also in the big question, are private schools bad for society? We'll hear from all sides on that one. And I want to hear from you throughout the programme. mark@gbnews.uk. The best bit of my show is when you get in touch. Now, this programme has a golden rule. What is that golden rule? We don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. So for the next 2 hours, big debates, big guests, and always big opinions. Let's start with this one. A week is a long time in politics, and a year is a long time in broadcasting. This brand new current affairs TV network celebrates its first anniversary today. We're officially 1 year and 1 hour into our journey. Like Allied airstrikes during the Second World War, it's been a bumpy but ultimately victorious ride. We started with a few technical problems, and yes, we've been through more sound engineers than James Corden's been through Krispy Kreme donuts. A few people have gone by the wayside. One of the founding presenters of the channel, the hugely talented Andrew Neil, did just over a week of shows and absconded to the south of France, glass of champagne in hand, on the world's smallest private jet. He's now scratching out a living at Channel 4, and good luck to him. Campaigners were trying to get us cancelled before we even started. Surely evidence of why this channel was needed. High-profile commentators threatening to boycott GB News advertisers. All of that happened before we came on air. Why? Because like so many people working in TV, on the radio, in the press and online, they thought they had the media scene stitched up. They were wrong. We've been the only TV outfit to challenge the narrative across the board, on COVID measures, on vaccine mandates and on climate change, to name but three. No other TV network asked what the hell we were thinking when we shut down the economy for 2 years. Since April 2020, I challenged the bonkers communist idea of lockdowns, and I believe that history will judge me kindly. And on this channel, whether it's Neil Oliver's mesmerising monologues, Dan Wootton's feisty debates, Nana Akwia's pitch-perfect rants, or Michelle Dewberry's real-world intelligence and common sense, GB News has been calling out the madness of COVID measures since we came on air. So if you've been sat there for 2 years thinking all of this is bonkers and the world's lost its mind, thanks to this place, you're not alone. For 2 years, most of the media made you think you were crazy, cruel or stupid for questioning masks, lockdowns, school closures and vaccine mandates. If you think biological men with a full penis and testicles using female-only spaces, participating in female sport and filling up female jails and in some cases impregnating the inmates is bonkers, thanks to this place, you're not alone. If you think it's okay to love your country, if you think patriotism is the way to bring our nation together, all of its communities, its races, its cultures, and every social class, thanks to this place, you're not alone. If you think that people voted for Brexit by a majority, and that decision must be honoured, and we must tap into the huge potential of global Britain, then thanks to this place, you're not alone. And if you're someone that has questions, just questions about the vaccines, their efficacy and safety, if you wonder why healthy young people need to have them in order to live normal lives, then thanks to us, you're not alone. When the iconic football manager Sir Alex Ferguson took over at Manchester United, he said something interesting. He said he was going to knock Liverpool off their perch. Well, that's what we're here to do with Sky, the Beeb, ITV and all of our other rivals. And how will we do that? Well, by being authentic, by saying what we think, and by giving you a voice. We have a world-class, talented, diverse team that reflects modern Britain, both in front of and behind the camera. Just an hour ago, we had a Sunni and a Shiite Muslim on this channel debating blasphemy and censorship. It was a feisty debate. Where else would you see that on British TV? And everything we do is rooted in great journalism, in strong stories, balanced, respectful discussion, and a diversity of views. But most of the broadcast media, they don't like that. They don't want to debate anything. They want to sell one side of the story, whether it comes to COVID, vaccines, the economy, or climate change. So, this bouncing baby of a TV network, which they tried to strangle at birth, is now a kicking and screaming toddler, and getting bigger and stronger is our only goal. Why? Because I'll be blunt. Britain needs GB News. Our democracy needs GB News. And I'll be frank, you need GB News. Well, we're not going anywhere. 5 billion people have watched us digitally since we started. That's right, 5 billion. We're regularly beating our closest rivals, Sky, and I'm personally usually nosing ahead of them just about now, thanks to you. We are a digital network with a colossal online footprint, which is already rivaling a legacy media that's been around for decades. We've done all of that in a year. We're trending every other day online, demonstrating not just numbers, but editorial impact. We're talking about what matters to you, and that's why people are listening and watching. Over 1/3 of a million people watched my big opinion monologue about the World Health Organization, which I like to call the World Hell Organization. Our amazing team have done one hell of a job so far, but it would be nothing without you. We are acutely aware of all feedback, good, bad, and indifferent. So keep it coming. We want to get bigger, better, noisier, more compelling, and where possible, more fun too. If you're enjoying this show, and if you're enjoying the channel, tell your friends, tell your family, and let's change the world together. We've come so far in a year, but we haven't even started yet. Strap yourselves in, folks. The best is yet to come. Happy birthday, GB News. To celebrate our anniversary, we have a particularly special all-star panel tonight. I'm delighted to welcome Neil and Christine Hamilton, legendary political double act, of course, and the wonderful, the brilliant and very, very talented Nicola McLean. So, look, it's great to have both of you with us, Neil and Christine. But let's start with you, if I can, Nicola. First of all, do you think that the media and news media did need a shake-up?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's brilliant to have a channel that, you know, doesn't mind being controversial and definitely shows the other side of things like the vaccine and things like that, which I totally agree with you on. So, yeah, I think it's been brilliant.
Yes, because I just wonder, I'm trying to imagine a world without GB News, something Nicola many would salivate at. But what do you think has been the difference over the last year? Because it's my view that people watching this programme, listening on DAB+ on the radio, over the last 2 years, they might have thought, Nicola, that they were going mad, that they'd lost the plot, that somehow they could see the madness, but no one else could see it. And I just wonder whether those people now feel heard.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I know that from my social media, a lot of people feel like that most of the channels just give one-sided points of view, which wasn't everyone's point of view. So for you guys to come and give people a voice, it's been really good.
So what is the vaccine angle that you feel is not covered elsewhere?
Well, I agree with you. Why do fit, young, healthy children need it? You know, I've got a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I find it so alarming that you know, I get hounded for them to be vaccinated, which I won't do. So it's good when people, you know, can share that opinion without being shut down or it being censored. Like on Plus One, my views are usually censored and taken off when I say things like that.
And the whole point, Nicola, is that probably the majority of people watching this show will be ultra pro-vaccine across the board, you know, jab as many people as possible. Others think it should be discretion, but it's all about opinions, and we're all allowed an opinion, aren't we?
Yeah, and it's personal choice. Like we all should be able to have our own personal choice without being shut down. But it seems to be more and more that we're not allowed that anymore, which is why I'm so controversial, because I do say what I think. So yeah, you know, I don't mind if someone wants to vaccinate their kid. That's not my child. I have no problem with that. I've got no opinion on them, but I do definitely, you know, believe that I'm never going to vaccinate mine against it, and I hate it when people have such a strong opinion towards me about that.
Well, Nicola, you say what you think very articulately, which is why you're going to be a great fit on Mark Dolan tonight. Wonderful to have you on the show. Neil, you will understand why I'm going to let the ladies kick this discussion off. Christine, do you think that television news media needed a shake-up?
Oh, hell yes. I mean, absolutely. And I think what I love about GB News is, I think you alluded to it in your earlier on, is you actually do cover all opinions. You don't just have the right wing or the right on. You do cover all opinions. And what annoys me intensely about the other lot, let's not even name them, the ones that we all used to watch, they'll have a discussion about, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's Brexit or chewing gum or vaccinations or anything, and you get all the sides and people talking about the angle that they want to push, and you think the conversation's over and you think, well, hang on, where's the other side of the argument? Why haven't you had somebody on who's going to argue the opposite? You never get that. And the thing in particular that I think that GB News tackles so well and is such a beacon for is this anti-wokery. all the other news channels, it's just woke, 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 woke. And I get fed up to the back teeth of it because, I mean, I'm not woke. And I actually think that the vast majority of the people in this country aren't woke and they don't want wokery shoved down their throats. So it's just a question of them learning about GB News, and then your audiences will triple, quadruple, you'll be off the spectrum.
Well, that's the plan. Neil
That's
Hamilton,
the plan.
As a former high-profile Conservative MP and now as the leader of a national political party in UKIP, a very important party that precipitated our departure from the European Union, do you think in all the years that you've been giving media interviews that actually looking at the last year that GB News has changed the media landscape? You know, because it's very easy for us to sit here and, you know, blow our own trumpet, but has it made a difference, do you think?
Well, it's made a great difference to me because I can't get on any of the other channels.
Ageism.
More seriously, yes, I do think you are changing the landscape. Obviously, it's early days as yet, but it's essential that we do have a diversity of views. And that's the great thing about in this woke age in which we live, diversity is supposedly the watchword everywhere except in political opinions where, you know, we can't oppose climate change, we can't oppose wokery, we can't oppose the EU, we can't do this, we can't do that, according to the consensual view of the media class and the political class too. You know, the whole of the Brexit debate was actually the people against the politicians and against the establishment forces, whether it's in the media, the civil service, big business or politics. And GB News is, I think, a beacon of freedom and of diversity. And that's absolutely vital. You know, when I was born, there was only one TV channel in this country, the BBC. And over the course of half a century, you know, we had ITV, BBC Two, Channel 4, etc., etc. But the extraordinary thing is that no matter how many more channels we've got, actually listening to them all, the message that comes across is entirely the same. So GB News is actually breaking that mould, and I think it's an absolutely vital role it is performing.
Also, Neil, I've just got an observation. You know that the golden rule of this programme is that we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. I think it's important that we've got a news network that isn't boring.
Exactly. And you know, controversial opinions are interesting, can be entertaining. I mean, in Andrew Doyle's programme, immediately before this, we had that debate between the Shia and the Sunni Muslim couple, and that, you know, that was quite a gripping debate. And you won't see that on any other channel. And I think it's vitally important that GB News does show the others exactly how broadcasting should work.
Neil Hamilton, why can't you get on other news channels?
Well, maybe it's because I'm boring. I don't know.
I don't think so. First of all, you're very articulate. You're dishy, we know that. And of course, Christine will confirm that. But what about those bow ties? I mean, Winston Churchill, eat your heart out.
Well, I'm wearing this bow tie tonight because I saw you wearing a bow tie for the Jubilee, and I thought that if that's the standard that the show is now going to require, I've got to scrub myself up and dress accordingly.
Well, how about that, Nicola? Maybe that's another element which I mentioned in the Big Opinion monologue, which is a channel that dares to love Britain.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Is patriotism bad, Nicola?
No, absolutely not. We should all be patriotic, 100%.
How was the weekend for you, the Jubilee weekend? Did you celebrate?
Yeah, I did. I live in a village and we had a street party. It was lovely. The roads got shut off and there was lots of entertainment, lots of alcohol, and, yeah, a really good party. It was lovely.
Well, look, we've got lots to get through. One final thought. I'd like to offer some friction here, if I may, Christine. It's time for some tough love. You are the author of Great British Battle Axes. What does GB News need to do better?
Gosh, you've caught me. I would need notice of that question. And, you know, frankly, seriously, Mark, I may come back tomorrow, as it were. I know you're not on tomorrow.
We'll have you back tomorrow.
With a different view. But I actually think you just need to keep doing what you're doing and maybe strengthening certain bits. I mean, the lighting went a bit wrong just now, didn't it? You went into darkness. So
whoops.
You know, we need to get that organised. But no, basically, seriously, I just think keep doing what you're doing and you will get better and better. Obviously, I mean, a year is not very long in the life of a brand new television channel. It really isn't. You're still at the sort of mewling and puking in the nurse's arms stage. So you've got a long way to go, but just get better at what you're doing and I think you're on the right track.
Well, that's right. We're on the boob at the moment.
Yeah.
That's where we are, Neil.
You said it.
Well, I wouldn't have myself have said that the way to increase the viewership is more mewling and puking, but you never know. I suppose there's a market for everything.
There always is. What a fabulous panel tonight. So excited to have Nicola and, of course, Christine and Neil with us. It's going to be a lively hour later this hour in the news agenda with my panel. Should we have a trade war with the EU to save the Union? In the next hour, is there a way back for Prince Andrew into the royal family and public life? Is it ever too late to start a new career? And is it okay to call certain British towns god-awful? Now, it's our first anniversary. We are nothing without you. You're my boss. So what do you think about GB News a year on? What are your thoughts after 12 months of this brand new current affairs channel? Mark at gbnews.uk. Get your thoughts over good, bad and indifferent. Lots to get through. And don't forget my Mark Meets guest. Very, very excited to have Janet Devlin, a former X Factor contestant, been through alcoholism, self-harm, depression. She's back, a great star. She tells her story at 10. I'll see you after this short break. And next up in the big question, are private schools bad for society?
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio. On digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So much to get through. Let's have a look at your emails. Big reaction to my big opinion monologue. GB News is a year old. What are your thoughts about the channel? Are we doing what you need us to do? Let's have a look at this. How about this from Jackie? Hi, Mark and the GB News team. Happy birthday. Just to say, if you want to give both sides of the argument, why can't we have a representative with opposite views to Arlene Foster so we get the full story on Northern Ireland and not just one side? Well, Jackie, thank you so much for that. And I'm very happy to deliver that on this show. And I'll indeed share that view that you have with many of my older colleagues. Of course, Arlene's a fantastic broadcaster, but you're so right. The situation in Northern Ireland is a tale of two cities. So we'll definitely cover that. How about this? Well, a lot of people. Steve, I love GB News. I don't miss it. This from Cynthia, just to say we love GB News. What did we do before? Keep up the good work, and whatever you do, don't give up. Well, Cynthia, with your help, we certainly won't. Cynthia and Essex will keep those emails coming in. But it's time now for the big question, in which we tackle a major news story of the day from multiple points of view. Tonight, are private schools bad for society? Britain should be very proud of its private schools and not tilt the system to ensure more pupils from state schools are admitted to Oxbridge. This according to the Education Secretary, Nadeem Zahawi, who said that admissions should be based on merit alone, as he urged people to put aside their tribalism over high-performing private schools. Meanwhile, writing for The Critic magazine, journalist and friend of the show, Charlie Peters, says private schools are a waste of money. Both left and right, he says, overstate their effect on educational ability and achievements in later life. Meanwhile, the press report today that state school buildings are falling apart, with 1 in 3 needing urgent repairs, not a problem facing the private sector. So, are private schools bad for society? To debate this, I'm delighted to say that the author of that article, Charlie Peters, joins me now, as well as my panellists Neil and Christine Hamilton and Professor James Tooley, Vice-Chancellor of the University of Buckingham and the founder of an international chain of low-cost, high-quality, independent schools. Great to have all of you with us. Charlie Peters, are private schools bad for society?
No, I don't think they're bad for society. I just think that their effects are wildly overstated. And I think that the cost that parents pay for these schools is insane. It's crazy. The latest stats show that to send 2 children to a private day school and then boarding from 13 will cost you over £900,000. That's an extraordinarily large amount of money just to send 2 children to school. And what's the effect of that? Well, their defenders say that they improve academic performance, they boost your networking ability, and they make you more confident. I think all 3 of these cases are vastly overstated. On academic performance, I think prior ability makes up for a lot of why people do so well at private schools. I mean, they're selective schools. You have to be smart to get into them in the first place. And then, confidence, this big line about confidence. Sure, you meet very impressive politicians and journalists and academics who are very confident. But for every person like that, there's also, a businessman who went to state school and has the kind of, the Essex wide boy character like Alan Sugar. Did he need to go to private school to gain his confidence? I don't think so. So all in all, when you line up the arguments, I think that £900,000 is more valuable than a private school education.
Neil Hamilton, you are a grammar school boy. Is there, in your view, much of a difference between grammar schools and private schools? Because Charlie Peters would argue they're both academically successful because they're selective.
Well, I think that's right. Certainly the school that I went to many, many years ago, of course, more than half a century ago, we lived in a completely different kind of country from what we see today. But I certainly never lacked in confidence by not being at a public school, quite the opposite. I've always been combative and competitive, and I've never allowed my background to hold me back in any way. I certainly have a lot of sympathy with the view that, £900,000 to educate 2 children is an absurd amount of money after you've paid taxes for the state system as well. My view is that all schools should be independent schools, in a sense, and Professor Tooley's schools, I know, perform that function and are extremely successful themselves. In the 1979 general election, I stood on a manifesto which included giving education vouchers to all parents so that if they wanted to educate their children in the private sector, they could get the equivalent of the average cost of a state school education to start them off. Because we don't want a monolithic education system in this country. We want competition because competition is what improves quality in every other walk of life. So why not in education? The question of whether private schools are bad for society or not is not one that interests me at all. I don't believe in social engineering, and I don't think that governments should use their power in order to try to create some kind of utopian society. Parents have a right to educate their children as they think fit. And even if they want to homeschool or they want to send them to any kind of school, whether in this country or abroad, they should have that right. But the reality is that for the overwhelming majority of people in this country, they simply can't afford to educate their children outside of the state system. And I think this is something which needs to be looked at, because I don't think that's a good thing. You know, we pay our taxes, but what's the quality of what we get for what we pay? That's the key issue here. And a lot of state schools over the years have produced an abysmal education. And as we know, the real minority which needs to be considered in this country is white working class boys, because they're right at the bottom of the educational attainment league. And so if there's going to be any kind of diversity-based support for a minority, it should be for those, because they've been failed by our education system in certain parts of our country.
Professor James Tooley, you are the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Buckingham and the founder of an international chain of low-cost private schools, including the Independent Grammar School in Durham. Tell me about that school.
Yes, I mean, I think Charlie Peters has written a very interesting article in the Critic, well worth reading, very thoughtful. But really, his
would you give it an A+ or an A-?
Oh, I think it's definitely A standard. Yes, I would A+ for the. Yeah, all right, A+. There you go. No, it's a great article, but the biggest problem he has with private schools is the cost. And that's the biggest problem we all have with private schools. Well, actually, also the fact that some of them are becoming, to use that word, more woke than they need to be, and more woke than is necessary for anyone. So I think there are two sets of criticisms there. Let's remember, of course, private schools are very good for society. 7% of children go to private school, and yet 2/3 of British Nobel Prize winners were privately educated, 2/3 of British Oscar winners were privately educated, and so on. So they're very good for society, but they're too expensive. So what I've said all along, learning from the experience of other countries, why not try and have an affordable private education? And I experimented with this. It was an experiment, to be true, to be fair, a couple of years back, up in Durham, created the Independent Grammar School Durham, which is now has proven the point that we can run a private school for £3,300 a year. A year, that is not a term, a year. That's roughly half the per capita funding in the state schools. It's now passed to its Ofsted inspections. It's doing really well, very attractive, glowing testimonials from parents. So you can do it more cheaply. And Charlie, that's what we should be talking about, I think. Mark, we should be talking about creating a viable alternative, not giving up on private education. Please don't lose that independence from the state. You don't want the state to be dictating what education should be. Let's not lose that independence, but recognize these balmy prices that are just frightening everyone off, apart from that global elite. They're ridiculous. We don't need that. Let's focus on affordable private education. It's achievable.
Briefly, James Tooley, you've mentioned one advantage of the private sector is that they are less institutionally woke, with so-called progressive educational ideas. I guess private schools tend to be a bit more old-fashioned in their teaching. But why else are private schools more academically successful?
Well, I mean, what Charlie was hinting at, I think, is that it's because they just select the better. We heard the word selection a couple of times there. No, it's not to do with that. There's a study, you referred to it tangentially in your work, Charlie, but there's a study from the UCL Institute of Education which categorically shows controlling for background variables, you do get a private school effect. Internationally, that's true, and I bet if there were better studies done in this country, you get those true as well. So it's more of a focus on basics. It's a focus on academic achievement. It's not being shy. It's not being afraid of focusing on knowledge. the imparting of knowledge, the initiation into the best that's been thought and said. These are things that are found still in the private schools. Now, there are examples where we're moving away from that, but these are what we cherish in private education. And when private schools do get caught up in wokeism, I bet they can row back from wokeism much more quickly than where it's in the state sector, because parents can protest about it, parents can withdraw their children, parents can go for what they want, but it doesn't have to be so expensive. That's the key thing.
Christine Hamilton, if we eliminated all private schools, the state sector would improve overnight.
Yes, but don't forget, and this is what I'm not suggesting you're making this mistake, but a lot of people say all this money that goes into private schools, if it was directed to the state sector, well, it wouldn't be, because the people who pay for their kids to go to private schools are already paying their money into the state sector. So that wouldn't happen. Yet when what we need to do, the state sector needs to come up to the level of the private schools. But this isn't as big a problem, I don't think, as some people seem to think. I mean, I can't remember. I'm sorry. One of the speakers sitting below me here said it was 7%. I thought it was 6% of people who went to the private school, but it's 7%. And apparently 40% of those are foreigners, and vast numbers of people in this country, middle classes who were sending their children to private schools, they are now the jams, the just about managing, and they can't do it. They have saved as much as they can. They've stopped having all the other luxuries in life to try and keep their kids at school, and some of them are finding it completely impossible. But what we need to do, and the other thing, by the way, everybody says, oh, the private schools shouldn't be there because the establishment is people, you know, whether you're judges or in the cabinet or senior civil servants, it's all private schools, private schools. Not everybody wants to be a part of the establishment. 72%, I understand, of millionaires in this country didn't go to private school. Alan Sugar was mentioned. There are plenty of Alan Sugars in this world who, you know, it doesn't damn you to outer darkness just because you don't go to a private school. Quite the reverse. An awful lot of people who go to state schools decide, I am going to succeed. And by God, they do.
One example, Christine, you are the author of the great British book of battle axes. One Margaret Hilda Thatcher went to state school.
One Margaret Hilda Thatcher. I had a very varied education. I was sent to a private school to start with, but at the tender age of 12, I was expelled. So I then went to a co-ed grammar school, which I loved. I mean, it was fabulous. So I've had a very mixed education. I then went to a further education college to do A-levels. So I've had a bit of everything, and it did me the world of good, but I wouldn't have missed any of it. And also, I think it was Charlie Peters, who I read his article, by the way, with great interest earlier today. He mentioned the fact that it isn't just the private school education that gives some of these people the edge in certain areas. It's nature, not nurture. It's what they get at school. You know, it's the homes they come from that have books. It's the homes they come from where the parents talk about, you know, current affairs, etc., who teach the children the whole time. So it isn't just the schools who can take the credit, if credit is due, for that.
Charlie Peters, what do you think is the way forward for our education sector?
Well, I am a ginormous supporter of Professor Tooley's plans, and I long have been. In fact, one of the first pieces I ever wrote as a journalist was in defence of low-cost private schools, with particular focus with the international space. We now have a situation where educational heroes, if they become UN leaders, they have to sign up to a pledge which would require them to disregard low-cost private schools of any variety, which I think is a great shame. So I want more competition, more variety in education. And also I want to return to a schooling situation where focus and children who want to get ahead are allowed to do so. I think the main benefit that private schools have isn't the kind of the focus on the love of knowledge that Professor Tooley mentioned, but more that your fellow pupils are not there to detract your advancement. They will not disrupt the class. They will let you hard. That's really the parent paying for. But I don't think they should be paying £900,000 for it.
Charlie Peters, in your fascinating piece in The Critic magazine, you actually report that quite a few kids that go to private school, including expensive boarding school, when offered the choice between getting that private education or just receiving the equivalent cash lump sum, they would take the money.
Yeah, well, I spoke to a few of my boarding school peers who said that, well, looking back on what they had at school and how much it cost, they probably take the money. In part because I think our generation, I'm 26 now, we are uniquely saddled by a housing crisis and great demands on our income. And I think when we reflect on that amount of cash, we think, goodness me, wouldn't that be rather nice? And also, I think there is an awareness among all of us that actually the education that we enjoyed, while it was beautiful, while it was very helpful, and we had a great friendships and all the rest of it, the main benefit was the lack of disruption. Everyone there wanted to work hard. Everyone there had been selected and passed tests that proved they could get good grades. That's the real benefit of private school. That's what I want for every child in Britain.
Speaking of what's best for every child in Britain, Neil, many viewers will be watching this who have got kids, and they might take the view that it's unfair that their kids get an inferior education simply because of their bank balance. It's not fair.
Well, they get an inferior education not because of their bank balance, but because the state fails to provide one for them, and they've got no other choice. So what we really need to do is ensure that the state education system is brought up to the standard of the best, as far as that can be done. There would be no demand for private schools if the alternative was just as good for free, as it were, bearing in mind everybody pays taxes to pay for what's supposedly free. So I think the problem here is not the private education system, but the quality of state schools. Obviously, there's huge variations in quality in state schools. Some are absolutely marvellous and up to the quality of any of the top-notch private schools. But there are so many that are dismally failing, and particularly in areas where the catchment area is with a population that doesn't have the advantages that come with being in the middle classes, if you like, with income and attitudes to learning, books in the house, and so on and so forth. So I think what we need to do is look at the real cause of educational failure, which is certainly not the schools which succeed most spectacularly.
Of course, Christine Hamilton, briefly, all of the high-profile socialists like Diane Abbott normally wind up sending their kids to private school. If you had children, would you send them to private school or put them through the state sector?
Well, if we had children, they would by now be probably 45 or 50. So yes, I definitely would if I could possibly have afforded it. But people make huge sacrifices. One thing I do want to add is that I think the figure is right, but one of the experts will correct me if I'm wrong, that about 34% of pupils at private schools receive some or all help with bursaries. So they're not all having to pay these astronomical fees. And if I can mention one private school, a product who's in the news a lot is Rishi Sunak. He recently donated £100,000 to his school, Winchester, to help people who couldn't afford the fees. So it isn't everybody there who's paying the top-notch fees.
OK, well, briefly, final thoughts on this, Professor James Tooley.
Yes, it's not... The disruption is definitely a problem, and I totally agree with that. But it's not the selection that leads to a lack of disruption in the private schools. It is the fact that parents are committed and they want their children to do well. There's the accountability through parents. So forget the selection; it's the accountability that's so important. But I'm sure that £250,000. If you were going to give up your life now, as in the trajectory you're in, you would not want that. You would not want £250,000 instead of that trajectory, I'm sure.
To find out more about James Tooley's chain of low-cost independent schools, go to jamestooley.org, and to read Charlie Peters' fascinating article, head over to The Critic magazine. Lots more to come. Of course, we asked you on Twitter before the programme, before we went on air, whether you think private schools are bad for society. Well, the results are in. 20% say yes, they are bad for society. 80% say no. Lots more to come in the news agenda with my panel. Should we have a trade war with the EU to save the Union? See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
with honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A big response to our bigger question debate, are private schools bad for society? This from Avril, who says, "Hi Mark, my 2 children went to private school. My daughter was at an all-girls school. There were 17 in her class. My son was all boys, 14 in his class. I paid into the system for state schools, so where did that money go? They should have given it to me to put towards my children's education." Well, that's a really great email, Avril, and it goes on, but I hear the point you're making. Interesting there that James Tooley has independent schools which cost £3,300 per child per year. Remember, we pay in tax £7,000 to educate all children through the state sector. Food for thought, I think you'll agree. How about this on private schools? Tamsin says, "Of course private schools are better, Mark. I went to private school and had to pass a number of entrance exams to get in. Kids who didn't pass this exam weren't offered places. This was back in 1976, so maybe things have changed." And on GB News, that was the topic of my big opinion monologue. We are a year old. What are your thoughts about GB News a year on? This from Gerald, who says, "Mark, after a dodgy start and sometimes coming across as a coherent Norman Collier, GB News have most certainly come up smelling of roses. Absolutely brilliant and crucially needed. You are all wonderful. Don't you dare stop." Look, lots of other really, really kind emails. I'll never get through all of them. I was sent a gift in the post this week, which I'll be showing you in the next hour. Very touched by that. But also, what about this gift? Wonderful flowers, courtesy of my wonderful panellists, Neil and Christine Hamilton, from their garden. Christine, you've got green fingers.
Darling, I wouldn't want you to think that Neil had picked you flowers. I picked you flowers. I couldn't
See, I had a picture of Neil on his knees, fingering away.
No. No, darling, it's
after the watershed, isn't it?
Alan Titchmarsh.
It's Sunday night.
With his gloves on.
No.
So are you the gardener?
We're both the gardeners. We have a help with some of what you might call the heavy lifting. Now we're as old as we are, but I just thought you'd like those, as it's your birthday.
Well, look,
it was that or a lettuce.
No, well, I don't want a wet lettuce. And also, these roses they're not roses. What are they?
Peonies and roses.
Those 2 are
roses.
roses. Away from the camera, they're roses. The others are peonies.
They slightly go with your beautiful outfit tonight. So that's great. Well, look, thank you so much for that. The World Cup is coming very soon. Looking forward to England winning the World Cup without any doubt. Or Wales. Let's hope it's one of the 2 home nations in Qatar. Well, it can't be long now until competing countries start releasing their World Cup songs. But this got us to thinking about a classic of the genre.
It's watched by people on their tellies.
Nylon shirts and big beer bellies. England in Germany.
And our Geordie D at football.
And scoring goals.
England in Germany. England, we all agree.
We're going to win! Win the World Cup!
Well, that is 35 seconds of my life I won't get back, but it was worth it just to see Christine in shorts.
What about my six-pack?
Well,
it was there underneath.
It's a three-pack.
I did not know they were going to show that. If I'd known, I would have vetoed it, I can tell you.
How did that come about?
Oh, somebody sounded like a good idea. Somebody suggested it, and we weren't doing anything.
It was a
better
joke.
At the time. It was a joke.
Well, that is the story of my life. It's a brilliant video, and it's put a smile on all of our faces.
Dear.
Well done to Mark and the team for dragging that one out of the vault.
I'll deal with Mark later.
It'll cost us about £100,000 in royalties, all going to N. Hamilton Esquire. We talk briefly now about a slightly more sticky subject. The UK government is reportedly set to publish legislation tomorrow which could allow ministers to override parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol. This protocol governs post-Brexit trading arrangements with Northern Ireland and have long been a source of controversy because they lead to checks on some goods arriving from other parts of the UK. However, if the government scrapped the protocol, it could lead to a trade war with the EU just as the cost of living crisis starts to bite. So can we afford it? I have to ask the leader of UKIP, Neil Hamilton.
Well, let's confront reality here. The Irish border should never have been a problem at all. It's an entirely manufactured problem, manufactured by the EU, first of all, to try to maximise the pain of Brexit as a means of keeping all the other chicks in the henhouse of Brussels. And secondly, is to punish Britain for having the temerity to want to govern itself so that the voters can decide who's the government of the country, not the technocratic elite based in Brussels whom we neither vote for and can't dismiss.
It's an agreement that we signed up to, and the EU are within their rights to protect their single market, aren't they?
Well, yes, they are, of course. And if they want to put a border in Northern Ireland, let them do so. We're not going to do that. Actually, trade across the border of the Irish Republic and Northern Ireland is about 0.008% of all the trade of the EU, and yet 20% of all the checks on trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland takes 20% of the checks throughout the whole of the EU take place in the Irish Sea.
20% of checks for 0.08 of goods.
Whatever it is, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is a nonsense. The idea that Marks and Spencers can't export a sandwich from Great Britain to Northern Ireland for fear that it might get into the Irish Republic.
Which has been happening for almost 5 decades.
Of course. So it's a non-issue, and we know that there's a digital solution for this anyway, tracking goods, so that if they do leach into the Irish Republic, then they pay the appropriate duties, or they're kept out if they don't meet whatever EU standards are that are different from us. Actually, as yet, because the government has done nothing to take advantage of Brexit to reduce the burden of administration and excessive protection, so-called, of the public, there is no difference for all practical purposes between goods that are sold in the EU and in the United Kingdom. So the subtext here, of course, is that the EU wants to detach Northern Ireland from the United Kingdom and incorporate it into the Irish Republic. That's what this is ultimately all about. It's actually to destroy the United Kingdom and to have an all-Irish Republic. And that's what the government should have realised right from the start. It never got into this mess. Now they have the opportunity to get out of it. Just trigger Article 16, which gives us the right to take unilateral action to protect our own national identity.
Here's hoping that the Prime Minister has the cojones, the courage, the political backbone to do it. I know if you were Prime Minister that would happen. Nicola, the only issue we've got here is that the country is in an economic crisis. The cost of living crisis is a nightmare for millions. Do we need any more friction with our biggest trading partner?
It's hard. I'm learning on the job here because I'm certainly not in any way political minded. So listening to Neil is useful.
Sure.
I find it hard to answer the question because, as I say, it's not my thing. But I do find the cost of living so stressful. I've got a single parent friends who are struggling so badly at the minute. You know, everything is going up and the money coming in is not what's going out. It's so hard for everyone at the minute who is struggling. So I think that I'd like more emphasis to be on that, for people to be getting help and for us not to be thinking about heating our houses rather than feeding our kids. It's awful.
And on that, we can agree. Well, look, lots more to come. Christine, I'll get your thoughts on that in the next hour, because we've got a very busy hour coming up. Very excited about our Mark Meets guest, a talented young Irish singer from Northern Ireland, Janet Devlin. She's been through alcoholism, self-harm, bipolar disorder, and she's here to tell the story. An amazing, amazing story. Plus, another monologue coming about skirts being banned from a girls' school. You won't want to miss that. See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, and the left fights the right, and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was, in fact, a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's 10 o'clock and welcome to a first anniversary special of Mark Dolan tonight. GB News is a year old. So we are celebrating in style with a very special Mark Meets guest who's now in the studio. I've just met her and I'm properly starstruck. A girl who appeared on X Factor age 16. She's been through so much, a lot of challenges, including the pressures of fame and addiction. But she tells her incredible story of recovery and her amazing music. So I look forward to that interview in the next few minutes. In the news agenda with my panel, is there a way back for Prince Andrew? Is it ever too late to start a new career? And is it okay to call British towns god-awful? In which case, which towns are god-awful? Mark at gbnews.uk, let me know. Plus, tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 with full panel reaction and my take at 10. And it's all about a huge, huge problem we've got in the world of education. So we'll discuss all of that and my all-star panel, Nicola McLean and Neil and Christine Hamilton. But first, another star in our midst. Here are the headlines with Polly.
Mark, thank you. The top story tonight. A former British soldier has been killed fighting Russian forces in Ukraine. Jordan Gattley's family say he was shot in the eastern city of Severodonetsk. He'd left the British Army in March. In a statement on social media, his parents described him as a hero, saying after careful consideration he went to Ukraine to help. They added that both Jordan and his team were proud of the work they were doing and that the missions they were going on were dangerous but necessary. Meanwhile, protests have been taking place outside an immigration removal centre near Gatwick Airport. That comes as the government prepares to deport the first group of asylum seekers to Africa. The demonstrators shook the outer fence of the facility while people inside chanted, "No Rwanda." An appeal against a ruling which allowed the flight to go ahead on Tuesday will be heard at the High Court tomorrow. Unions have criticised a potential government plan to change the law allowing agency workers to cover for striking staff. Major travel chaos is expected later this month after railway workers voted overwhelmingly in favour of industrial action in a dispute over pay, pensions and conditions. Writing in the Sun on Sunday newspaper, the Transport Secretary Grant Shapps said they could also be banned from working overtime to make up for lost earnings during the strike. Labour is calling for greater transparency ahead of the introduction of new legislation on the Northern Ireland Protocol. The party wants the government's legal advice to be published. That comes after the Northern Ireland Secretary Brandon Lewis said the new bill, which gives ministers powers to scrap elements of the agreement, will not breach international law. The Business Secretary has ordered an urgent investigation into petrol station operators. It follows concerns that some of them may be failing to pass on fuel duty cuts. In a letter to the Competition and Markets Authority, Kwasi Kwarteng said drivers are rightly frustrated that the 5 pence a litre reduction hasn't stopped prices rising. In the United States, senators look close to agreeing on a framework for tougher gun safety legislation. The plan has now received enough support from Republicans to pass through the Senate. The move comes after tens of thousands of people rallied across the country. If it's passed by Congress, it would mark the first significant new gun law in decades in the States. And lastly, veterans of the Falklands War have marked its 40th anniversary with a service of remembrance in Blackpool. Members of the Tumbledown Veterans and Families Association marched to the cenotaph in Blackpool to remember those who lost their lives at the Battle of Mount Tumbledown. Many had served in the 2nd Battalion Scots Guards. The successful mission ultimately played an important part in Argentina's surrender. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News tonight, and it's time to go back to Mark Dolan tonight.
We are a year old and the emails are flooding in. I've got to say, very, very touched by the sentiment that's coming from all of you. This from Ronald. Hi, Mark. Fab show tonight with 3 superb panellists. GB News has certainly given me great viewing time over the past year. All the very best for the years to come. Thank you and take care, Ron. Well, Ron, we are nothing without you and the many people that watch this show and this channel. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight, and a very busy hour to come. Big stories, big guests and big opinions. In the news agenda with my panel, is there a way back for Prince Andrew? And also, is it ever too late to start a new career? Also, is it OK to call British towns god-awful? In which case, which British towns are god-awful? Let me know, Mark, at gbnews.uk. Plus, another topical game show and tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 p.m. sharp with full reaction from my panel. Fantastic panel tonight. TV presenter Nicola McLean and Neil and Christine Hamilton. And my Mark Meets guest, singer-songwriter Janet Devlin, with me live in the studio telling her amazing story. But first, this. Welcome to Bonkers Britain. Take a look at this. A school in Devon has banned skirts in favour of a gender-neutral uniform which is more inclusive. Inclusive is now one of those snake oil words that equate to bonkers ideas like gender ideology, in which you can be one of a million sexes. The policy of eliminating gender is now at state level, for example in Scotland, where children as young as 5 can change their name or their pronouns without parental consent. It's at a corporate level, with companies urging their staff to put pronouns, she, him, he, her, they, them, in emails. It's at an academic level, with the likes of respected Professor Kathleen Stock effectively hounded out of Sussex University for saying there are two biological sexes. And this dogma, this bonkers ideology, is most disturbingly now in schools. A female head teacher of a private school has said she's going to try to avoid using the word girls to her pupils. She's the head teacher of a, wait for it, all-girls school. Now, I'm super pro-trans and have many friends who have been on that joyous and important journey. Transphobia is just as bad as the evils of homophobia, sexism and racism. But this woke land grab of our culture, our history, our values, and now basic human biology must be called out and must be resisted. I'm somebody with the balls to do that. I've got balls of steel, don't you know? We've got the NHS talking about people who get ovarian cancer. Let me help you with that. I wasn't at medical school, I'm not a doctor, but those people are women. If, as an adult, you wish to be transitioned and referred to by the opposite gender, no problem, that's wonderful, good luck to you. That must be honoured and respected. But someone with a penis and testicles has no place in women's sport, in women's prisons, in women's changing rooms, or any other female-only environment. At some point, I predict that a biological man participating in female sport, particularly a sport like wrestling or rugby, will cause the death of a female competitor. Let's not wait for a horrific moment like that to be the tipping point at which we call time on this madness. Let boys be boys and let girls be girls. Having two sexes and two genders has served our species very well. To drastically change our society and our communities by creating myriad other fictional genders will achieve just one thing. It will divide society and accelerate our demise. I took my cat Harry to have his gender identified when we got him. The vet wasn't being transphobic when he found a willy and identified him as a boy. If we accept the scientific and biological fiction that there are more than two sexes, or that a man can literally become a woman, or a woman can literally become a man, this doesn't end well. How many other basic scientific principles will we then challenge? Gravity, the Earth being flat? Ideological zealots have always threatened the human race, and once again it's our job, the job of normal, right-minding people who can see the truth, to actually defeat them. We're all in this fight, so get your shoulder to the wheel, man up, defend women, and don't be such a pussy. Let's get panel reaction from TV presenter Nicola McLean and Neil and Christine Hamilton. Nicola, the banning of skirts from a school, it's a co-educational school, no more skirts, trousers for everyone. Your reaction?
I just wouldn't comply. I've got two boys, but if I had a girl, if she wanted to wear a skirt, she'd be wearing a skirt and she would be going to school in a skirt. I would not comply with that. I think it's absolutely ludicrous. I can't work it out. I mean, I think if girls want to wear trousers, they should be allowed to. That's fine. But I do think that girls should wear skirts as part of their uniform if they're comfortable to do so. Like, why is the choice being taken away? Why is every bit of choice being taken away from people? I can't work it out. I genuinely can't.
Christine, no one would ever challenge your gender, least of all Neil. But what do you think about this? They would argue that it's actually a very levelling policy because everyone's in trousers. It means that all of the pupils are safe, they're comfortable. It's perhaps cheaper for parents who can kind of share and borrow these trousers. That you create this uniform, you make life simpler and possibly cheaper.
It's utter rollicks. The school have actually given themselves away because what they said was, this is from the school, it has become, quote, frustrating and time-consuming for staff to keep having to enforce the school's skirt length policy. In other words, they are blaming the girls because I used to do it. You roll the waistband of your skirt up so that your skirt goes...
Is that why you were expelled?
Oh, no, far worse than that. But no, what they should say to those girls is, look, you've had one warning, you've had two warnings, you've had three warnings. Next time you roll your skirt up, you will have to wear trousers. They could say that. But to make them all... It's ridiculous. It is an agenda to ban gender in the school. And if a girl wants to wear trousers, that's fine. Equally, if a boy wants to wear a skirt, he should be allowed to do it. But this is utter nonsense in the 21st century. And the parents apparently were not consulted. So there's been no vote about all this. Apparently the children were told it was going to happen, but that's not quite the same. A note was sent out to parents which says, parents and carers will be pleased to know that the majority of the uniform will remain as it is, with the exception that from September, all students will be expected to wear trousers. That's not a consultation, that's an ultimatum. It's ridiculous. I wish I was a mother at that school. My goodness, I'd be down there talking to the headmistress or master or person and the governors.
Christine, you're going to have to get on that fence. Your views are far too ambiguous for this channel. Neil, the clock's against us. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, what concerns me most about this is the institutionalisation of male supremacy. It's got to be trousers at that school. Why not kilts for everybody? So that we show the knees and legs from the knee down of all pupils. Why has it got to be trousers? I think it's absolutely disgraceful.
Neil, I couldn't agree with you more, and I saw your sporran before the show, and it's
mighty.
It's mighty. And it's impressive and highly electable. Brilliant stuff. Well, we'll come back to my panel very shortly. We've got some great news agenda questions, including, is there a way back for Prince Andrew? Is it ever too late to start a new career? And is it OK to call any British towns god-awful? But first, this. It's time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport and beyond. Tonight, we meet the hugely talented Northern Irish singer-songwriter Janet Devlin, who competed in the 8th series of The X Factor in 2011. She was about 15 or 16 years of age. She finished in 5th place and took the world by storm. This exposure, however, was followed by the release of her debut album, Hide and Seek, which was a huge success, loads of EPs and singles, and a second studio album, Confessional, released on the 5th of June 2020. There have been live tours, and Janet remains a hugely popular singer and songwriter. She's won awards as well for her music. She's been in a movie called Songbird, and a powerful documentary feature about her own struggles with addiction. And there's the rub. She's had lots of success, but she's been through a tough time as well. In March 2020, she posted a video on YouTube explaining that she was a recovering alcoholic and had been sober since the age of 20, which is a great achievement. It's the ultimate story of survival, and I'm delighted to say that Janet Devlin joins us now. Hi, Janet.
Hello.
First of all, it's great to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you.
Can I congratulate you on your amazing recovery?
Oh, thank you so much.
And how did you do it?
Oh, gosh. It wasn't really through choice initially. I ended up in recovery because of multiple horrible instances where I almost lost my life. I joined the Rooms, which is AA, and I got sober.
So how old were you when you reached out for help? You remember how old you were?
Oh, gosh. The first time I reached out for help, I think I was 19.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't ready for it. And it happens because as an alcoholic, you have to be willing to get better before you can actually start doing that. And I wasn't. But when I was 20, I finally hit that rock bottom. Yeah. And I went in and finally started to get better.
And what did that look like, that rock bottom?
Oh, golly.
Messy.
It was all, yeah, but my rock bottom wasn't my worst case scenario because I'd had situations where, like, I was on my way to a red carpet and I passed out in King's Cross station bathrooms because I was absolutely drunk. You can imagine, red carpet gown, passed out in a bathroom. But that wasn't where I got sober. My rock bottom was my emotional rock bottom, where I just couldn't actually take any more. And I was on my hands and knees and I was ready to finally stop drinking.
Well, it's just a wonderful triumph that you're here now. The picture of health, you look incredible. And I know your music is your big obsession and your great addiction. Clearly, you've been through so much. Why did it happen in the first place, do you think?
Oh, gosh. Because I think a lot of people hear my story and they're like, oh, that's what happens when you go on TV young. And I have to really...
A bit of I told you so about showbiz.
And unfortunately, that wasn't my story.
You should have been an accountant.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, I suffered with depression at the age of 11. I was self-harming by 12. I was anorexic by 15. I was showing clear signs of addictive behaviours. And it wasn't until last year that I got diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and bipolar type 2. And they're very clear symptoms of those conditions. So
yeah, and it's a chemical. I mean, it's a physical disease as well as a psychological one, isn't it?
absolutely, yes.
The chemical balance in the brain.
So no one truly knows why someone becomes an alcoholic. There is no, and that's how you're an alcoholic. This wire in your brain is wrong. Unfortunately, there isn't that. There's a lot of circumstances, and some people believe you can drink yourself into it, and some people believe that you are traumatized, and that's what happens. There is no actual understanding as to why people become addicts.
And now you've got your life back.
Thankfully, yes. After a lot of searching, I finally got it back.
Can I say, though, you got in very early with recovery at the age of 19 or 20. That's great, because you've got the rest of your life ahead of you in sobriety. There's a lot to do, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. It was a blessing and a curse, you know, because I did do the TV and stuff, which meant I did have money, which meant I had too much money to drink. But it meant that I hit my recovery young, and it's given me my 20s, which if I was continuing to drink, I would have no recollection of whatsoever.
Feel free not to answer any of these questions, but was it mainly booze or were there other substances?
So the first time was just mainly booze, but I also, and this is an untalked about issue, especially in the UK, I was addicted to benzodiazepines, which are used for sleep. So I was addicted to sleeping pills for about 7 years. And I was casually overdosing on those a lot and casually drinking
And using them as effectively a tranquilizer?
Yes. Yeah.
I would have thought that might have been the hardest thing to get off, was it?
I say this to people a lot because I did 3.5 years sober, then I relapsed, and now I'm almost 4 years sober again. So I'm lucky, but I went to rehab in the middle of that, and I don't think I would have went to rehab if they'd said to me, "Oh, you can't have your benzos if you go here." That's how hooked I was on them.
So you could get over the idea of never having a drink again,
Yes.
but I'll be needing those sleeping pills.
Absolutely. And when you sit back and you look at that, you're like, that's crazy thinking. But I wasn't exactly seeing.
Well,
so.
we've seen it with celebrities getting addicted to opioid painkillers.
Yes.
Some very high-profile, very successful, accomplished people. Ant McPartlin, brilliantly talented, one half of Ant and Dec.
Yeah.
Got a really bad knee injury. Really struggled with addiction to painkillers.
It's a real issue, and it's not talked about because it's a demon dressed in a different way because it's legal, and you can get a prescription for it, but nobody really wants to face that issue of they can be just as bad.
So that's done. Let's talk about your incredible music. First of all, did you have an early interest in music? Were you given an instrument? What happened?
Yes. So I was in a Keeley band at the age of 4. Playing the whistle, which then led to playing the fiddle. So I was always into music. Singing was never the thing, though. The only reason I got into singing was because I was a drummer and I needed money to buy my drum kit. And I did singing competitions to earn money. And bada bing, bada boom, I don't know why I ended up doing music.
The rest is history. So can you still play an instrument?
Yeah. Not well, but I can.
Because actually, the level of Ceilidh music is pretty damn high, isn't it? It's fast and it's precise.
Absolutely, and it's all done by ear.
Yeah.
You know, you aren't right. You're not reading sheet music. You just know the songs and you're playing them.
And you've got to keep the pace.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun though. I love traditional music, and I'll never let that go. And it was an important thing for me to try and incorporate in the last record with Confessional.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Irish music in there, so.
Well, that's it. So can we look forward to another album?
I'm working on it at the minute.
Amazing.
Yes, and hopefully a wee bit more of still popish, but with a country undertone in there, so.
Love that. Who are the people that have influenced you over the years? Who are your heroines or heroes?
It changes a lot because a lot of my heroes have come out and we find out that they've done a lot of despicable acts, so they lost their rankings.
So we lost Michael Jackson. and a
there's
few
been
others.
a lot.
I lost Bill Cosby a few years ago.
Oh,
I'll spare you the details.
Yes, so for me it was the Chili Peppers.
Oh, yeah.
Lost those as heroes,
Yeah,
but
very
I've got better heroes now, like the likes of Chris Stapleton and things like that.
Brilliant, brilliant. And what about that experience on X Factor? I mean, I'm sure you'll tell me you wouldn't change a thing because it's been a bumpy ride, but here you are to tell the story. What about that experience? Did you, if I told you on your first day, your first audition, that you would have gone that far, would you have believed me?
Absolutely not. No way.
Finish fifth is incredible.
But to put it in perspective, like I was flying to judges' houses to Miami and I was doing my psychology homework on the plane. I was doing my schoolwork because I was like, oh, this bubble's going to burst. Like.
And tell me about the emotions when you got that far. I mean, were you afraid? Were you excited? Were you happy?
It's all very surreal because I was 16, so I didn't really have much of a concept of what was going on. But I was in a really bad place in the sense of I had a lot of depression and things like that going on, and I was in an awful relationship at the time as well. I didn't have a lot of self-belief. But that's what the show gave me. It was this, you can do it. Like, people like your voice. And I think that was the little kick I needed, because I don't know, otherwise, if I would have had the confidence to go into music, I almost needed a platform of national television to be like, you know, you can actually sing.
It's a great place to find out, isn't it?
Well, that's why I went on. I was like, if anyone's going to tell me whether I can sing or not, I mean, Simon will let me know.
He will.
Yes.
Yeah, he doesn't mince his words, does he? You're an amazing talent, ridiculously beautiful young woman.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations on your recovery. That's probably your greatest triumph.
Thank you.
But clearly what lies ahead is a lot of musical success. I know you do so many live gigs, and also you're a huge star online with online shows. To find out what Janet does, why don't you pop over to her website? Obviously, she's all over YouTube, but her website is janetdevlin.com. janetdevlin.com. Janet, will you come and see us soon, especially when the new album's out?
Absolutely, I'd love to.
Can't wait to hear it. Brilliant stuff. Lots more to come. Next up in the news agenda with my panel, is there a way back for Prince Andrew? And at exactly 10:30, we've got tomorrow's papers. Don't go anywhere.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It is our first anniversary. GB News is a year old. My celebratory Big Opinion monologue is now online thanks to the excellent George in our digital team. Check it out at GB News on Twitter. This from Linda. Hi, Mark. I really don't know what I would do without GB News. You've been a breath of fresh air and talk the common sense most of us think but are unable to say. I watch either Dan or yourself at 9 p.m. every evening. Also love Nigel and Nana. I also listen on the radio throughout the day. Please keep going and speaking up for the silent majority. Happy birthday. Well, Linda, thank you so much for your kind words. Lots and lots of really positive messages coming in, and it's deeply appreciated. We are nothing without you. You are my boss, and it's a privilege working for you. Now, let's talk about Prince Andrew. He's made many headlines over the last few years, and we all know they've not been that positive. But having been disgraced due to his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, the Duke of York now wants a second chance. Reports have emerged today saying the Prince, quote, wants his royal status reinstated, recognised and respected. So is it too late for the disgraced royal, or is there a way back for Prince Andrew? Christine.
Well,
I mean, you're used to forgiving men, aren't you?
Well, women have this occupational hazard for women, for goodness sake. I think he's got two options. Either he has to take the John Profumo route, which is go and do something useful for a while. What has Andrew done since he fell from grace? What has he done?
So John Profumo caught up in a sex scandal in the 60s. Yep. And what did he do?
In a nutshell, he went and did charity work in the East End quietly, unannounced. Nobody really knew it was going on. And then he was rehabilitated in due course. Andrew, as far as I'm aware, has done nothing. The other thing he could do is he could go on reality television like Nicola and I have. I was in the very first I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. You were in whichever one it was.
I was in 2008, but I can't remember how many series.
There we are, 7 years later. He could go and do something like that to rehabilitate himself. It really kick-start my career. In fact, it started my career as a media butterfly. Yeah. So he could do that. But, I mean, honestly, the idea that he can go back and become the Colonel-in-Chief of the Grenadiers, I mean, apparently the title is in abeyance. The Queen is holding it at the moment. You know,
But has he... I mean, look, I'm no fan of Prince Andrew, but I mean, has he done anything wrong that goes beyond just being Randy Andy?
OK, yes.
Because people call him a paedophile.
Innocent.
He's not a paedophile,
No, he's not a paedophile. And anyone who calls him a paedophile is grossly out of order.
Correct.
He has not been convicted of anything. He is not a paedophile. He just had some unfortunate connotations.
And this young woman, Victoria Giuffre, she was 17 when they allegedly had relations?
I know. Oh no, I think he's been unfairly hung out to dry in certain aspects. But I mean, that appalling interview he did with Emily Maitlis when he clearly, the killer question was, do you regret your association? And he sort of said, well, I just think about that. No, I don't think so, because it was very good for me and lots of useful introductions. Instead of saying, yes, of course I do, and I had no idea what was going on, and I deeply regret what happened to some of those young women, but it wasn't me.
He didn't show much empathy.
No empathy, no remorse, no humility. I think he needs to serve a little bit longer, to say the least, in the wilderness before he comes back.
Nicola, is there a way back for Randy Andy?
No, I don't think so. And you say that the girl was 17. I mean, in my opinion, that's disgusting. She's still a child. When I was 17, I wouldn't have been having sex with grown men. So, you know, I don't think...
And this is a prince. The amount of status and power that he enjoyed. Not just his age, but who he was.
Yeah, totally. And I don't think there's a way back for him at all. I don't think that the public want him to be a working royal. I'm glad that he wasn't anywhere to be seen on the Jubilee and it could be all about the Queen. I just think he's a disgrace to her, and it's a shame because she clearly adores him, doesn't she? He's, apparently visits her constantly. Yeah. So he's
favourite son, we were told.
Yes, definitely trying to get back in there, but I really hope that she stays strong because I don't think the public would welcome him.
So if you were the Queen, you would basically keep him in his box for the foreseeable. Is that time limited, Nicola? Or do you think in a decade when this, this is sort of, yesterday's whatever newspaper wrapper is a chip shop, wrapping or whatever. But, do you think that time will heal this?
Not for me. I don't think so. I mean, he paid off his alleged victim, didn't he? Which I always think is very telling. I mean, if you have nothing to hide, then why are you paying off someone? So, no, not for me.
OK.
Can I just... Look, I don't know. In fairness, I think he didn't want to cause any embarrassment for the Jubilee. But, time is not on his side because once Prince Charles becomes king, he's toast. Yeah. He's got to be reinstated by the Queen or else he's toast.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair point. What do we think? What happened to forgiveness, Neil?
Exactly. maybe California is the option. Perhaps Prince Harry will offer him asylum out in Montecito. Who knows?
Well, he's the Duke of York, so what would we call it? Is it Yexit?
We don't know that Prince Andrew had sex with that woman, as Bill Clinton would have said all those years ago.
It.
The problem is that in the world of public opinion, where there's smoke, there's fire, or whatever.
Plus, he's handled it badly.
He's handled it very badly indeed, and clearly he made a very bad judgment in continuing to associate with Epstein after Epstein was exposed as having had sex with young girls, and he paid the price for that. So he doesn't really seem to be very worldly wise. And if you're in the royal family, you live in a very sort of rarefied world. You're used to getting your own way. And I think his arrogance is probably the bar to his revival.
I think one of the problems is that he's a bear of very little brain, and the Queen should stick to Paddington.
Now you're talking. Paddington's got common sense and marmalade sandwiches. Well put. Well, it's just after 10:30, so it's time for a look at tomorrow morning's papers. Hot off the press. That's right, we do the papers at 10:30 every Friday, Saturday and Sunday. And let's start with the Financial Times. And this is their front page. Tories attack Johnson over bid to rip up Northern Ireland trade deal. Insiders say the protocol will be rewritten. Fears the bill will break the law. The Lords are set to block progress. There's a surprise. OK, next up, the I newspaper. This is their front page. Rwanda flights may not get off the ground. Refugees could get last-minute reprieve from deportation if this controversial policy is defeated in the Court of Appeal on Monday. Metro next. Brit killed on Ukraine front line. Very tough story. Death of our hero. A former British soldier has been killed fighting for Ukraine. His family have revealed Jordan Gatley, who is just 24 years of age, was shot amid fierce fighting with Russians on the front line at Severodonetsk. He left the army in March, volunteered to face off Vladimir Putin's Russian men. Tragic story there about Jonathan Gatley, aged 24. May he rest in peace. The Guardian now, overriding Northern Irish deal will damage UK investment, warns the CBI. You can just tell the Guardian reporting that story with such glee, with such pleasure. The UK's foremost business lobby group has warned the government that its threat to override the Northern Ireland Protocol is forcing companies to think again about investing in Britain and dragging down the economy. I'll ask Neil and Christine about that shortly. And I want to ask Nicola about this one. Johnson's food plan is not a strategy, says advisor. The government's lead advisor on food issues has condemned what ministers have billed as a landmark national plan to combat food poverty and obesity, warning it could mean more children will go hungry. Henry Dimbleby's verdict is further bad news for Boris Johnson, as the White Paper is a direct response to last year's landmark review of Britain's food system, led by the restaurateur. The key recommendations were to cut our sugar and fat consumption, but Boris Johnson has kicked that one into the long grass. Daily Mail next. New Rwanda flight farce as Petrol faces appeals from all 31 migrants due on the first plane tomorrow. Will it even take off? And picking up on the story we discussed just a moment ago, Andrew asks for his royal status back and to be Grenadier Guards Colonel again. And I would say on that one, good luck with that, old Andy. And those are your front pages. Let's get full panel reaction now. And Nicola, let me ask you about this. The government has basically postponed plans to reduce our consumption of sugar. This strategy was dreamt up by Henry Dimbleby, who is the founder of the Leon food chain, which I think sells quite sort of healthy food, doesn't it? He's trying to improve the national diet. He wants potentially a sugar tax. The Prime Minister's not going to do it. What's your view?
I feel so strongly about anything to do with food because I'm a recovering anorexic and I'm still bulimic. So I find it really sensitive. I'm fine with talking about it, but I find it really sensitive when people go on about sugar and, you know, calories on menus and things like that. I think as parents, we need to be watching what goes in our children's mouths. I don't think that the government need to make a law about it. I think, you know, I just think that I do my children's diet and my children aren't obese because I know what they should and shouldn't be eating.
Let me guess, it's based around real food?
Yes, absolutely. Like, you know, I'm fine with my children having a takeaway as a treat once every couple of weeks. You know, if we go past a fast food chain restaurant on our way back from football after they've just burnt, you know, and they've exercised, I've got no problem with that. So I find it, you know, I just find all this restriction very hard to manage myself. You know, I just think that parents should educate themselves and feed their children as they should be fed. You know, if you've got a fat child, it's your fault.
Wow.
Well, usually if you've got a fat child, you are fat yourself. If the vast majority, 90-something% of fat children have fat parents.
Yeah. And Nicola, my view is, because I'm a libertarian, I think that people should just live their lives as they so wish. But we do have an obesity epidemic, and I think it's a great failure of our society that our children are getting fatter. I feel we're letting them down.
Well, I feel like, you know, people that overeat normally have emotional issues. You don't choose to just be fat. You know, there's this really, you know, people think, oh, they're just fat and lazy. You know, it's the same as being anorexic as obese. You know, you're mentally unwell. So I feel like we should put more into mental health than worrying so much about the food, because if someone's mental state is right, obviously there's of course there's people that do just overeat, but normally they don't. So I think kids need to be taught, and there needs to be more in schools about emotional eating and emotional support.
Yeah, I think that's very wise, and I think it starts with kids, doesn't it, Neil?
Yes, but, you know, I have great issues with the government looking at our diets and telling us what we should and shouldn't do. You know, Boris Johnson is the head of this government. He looks pretty well upholstered. I'd like to know what his body mass index is to start with.
Not good. He's not one to preach, is he?
The temerity to start telling everybody else what they should eat and shouldn't eat. I'm all for education and giving people information. I've no real problem with putting calories on menus and so on. So that's all part of people's decision-making.
I think you won't have a problem with calories being on menus because you don't have an issue. But for someone like me, I won't look at a menu now. So I have to give my husband the menu and say to him, you pick me something to eat, because if I see the calories, I won't eat it.
Yeah. Or you'll eat it and you will try to get rid of it.
So, you know, I think that there should be a choice, that you should be able to go into a restaurant and say, can I have a menu without calories on it,
quite agree.
please?
I think
because there is quite a lot. I mean, there is a huge eating disorders. The statistics are so high. You know, I'm not alone.
My 16-year-old son, it's not scientific or a proper poll, but he goes to a co-educational state school, and he's called it an epidemic among his female peers.
Yeah.
What of anorexia?
Eating disorders, yeah. Epidemic.
And it's not just anorexia, it is the bulimic, and then there's the overeating as well. So, you know, I understand why they've put calories on menus, but trust me when I say it's going to put so many people into relapsing.
Also, I mean, I wonder whether we're smart enough. I don't think we need necessarily calorie counts on menus, because if you go to Mackie D's or Pizza Hut, you know, right?
But also, how accurate are those calories? Because you've got to think, you know, you get a salad from somewhere, the salad dressing, they're not putting on the exact same amount every time. So it's not down to a T, but
I agree. And then the other factor is that the calories is a slight misnomer anyway, isn't it? Because a lot of people think that it's about body chemistry when it comes to obesity, and it's things like carbohydrates and sugar rather than actual calories.
Yeah, that's why you look like you do and I look like I do.
Well, listen, I think you're a fine figure of a man, very well preserved, just like that wine you're enjoying, Neil.
Well, that's the wine that preserves me, of course. Alcohol is a great preservative.
And the government would tell us how much we should be drinking.
Well,
no, we don't listen to that.
I can tell you.
Yeah, you see, it all went on the slippery slope when they had units on alcohol, didn't they? Christine, I wanted to talk to you earlier about the EU, and it's all over the press today, tomorrow's papers. Overriding the Northern Irish deal will damage UK investment, warns the CBI, who, of course, are a bunch of Remainers. this. But
well, exactly.
What do you think
Stevie,
about this?
I've called just about everything wrong going back to the beginning of time, so I really don't think we need to worry about that. I just think we have to just get on with it. I mean, to hell with the EU. They're worrying and they're making all these threats. First of all, they don't even know what the government are proposing to do tomorrow. Nobody does. It's what the government do, I hope. But it's all coming out tomorrow. Brandon Lewis says that they're not going to break international law. But anyway, frankly, it's the EU that have made these problems. They're the ones who put up the borders. We should have just said right at the beginning, we don't want any borders. We will not implement them. If you want them, you do it. And we have gone along. We've just pussyfooted with the EU and we've gone along with them. It's ridiculous. It's time we put our foot down and say we have Brexited and we want no borders on the island of Ireland.
Yeah.
If you want them, you put them up.
You've written at length about political leadership, and you'll have brushed shoulders with Margaret Thatcher and many other luminaries. When you worked in the Commons, you worked in Neil's office, and you've written about so many politicians. Do you think Boris Johnson has got the leadership to actually tear up this Northern Ireland Protocol, which divides our country? And if so, could it be his Falklands moment?
Well, I thought he had the leadership, which is why so many people voted for him, etc., because we thought he would get Brexit done. All he did was he got the Brexit vote through. He hasn't got Brexit done, and he has completely failed all the Brexiteers who voted for it because he hasn't followed through. I think now he is too concerned about saving his own backside. If he thinks this might save him his job, then he'll do it. So let's hope that Boris thinks that this is a game changer.
Could this be a reset moment for the Prime Minister if he shows some balls, Neil, and tears up that protocol?
Absolutely. But the problem is that Boris decided that he'd support Brexit on the toss of a coin.
Exactly.
He could have come down for Remain. So I've
does
no faith.
Does he not deserve credit for making Brexit happen, though? I know it's not the Brexit you'd like, but does he deserve some credit for getting it across the line? I mean, Lord Frost, who I'm sure you regard highly, did acknowledge in his recent article for The Telegraph that whilst the Prime Minister has his imperfections and needs to do lots to recalibrate his premiership, he said, look, it was the Prime Minister who single-handedly got Brexit across the line in the first place.
Well, he got Brexit across the line in Great Britain, but he didn't get Brexit across the line in Northern Ireland. That's the point. Yeah. Northern Ireland is subject to EU law, and that's why we have a border in the middle of the Irish Sea, and Northern Ireland is subject to the decisions of the European Court of Justice based in Brussels, in Luxembourg.
It's outrageous.
It's a national scandal, and no supranational.
This actually divides our nation into two, and that is a constitutional outrage.
Yeah, well said, and it could potentially restart the Troubles, which is an absolute nightmare. Right, well, look, we've got a couple of other front pages in. Jake, what have you got for me? Let's have a look. Let's go to the Times newspaper. Universities facing new China cash crackdown. Universities will be forced to reveal investment from foreign actors under plans being put forward by the government this week to crack down on undue influence. A move there to stop the UK being compromised in terms of its values and integrity. Energy market reform will cut fuel bills, writes their policy editor Oliver Wright. And another photograph of Jordan Gatley, a British Army veteran shot dead while fighting for Ukraine in Severodonetsk. It's a very, very sad story there. OK, what have we got next, Daryl? OK, those are your front pages. And lots more to come in the news agenda with my panel. We've got another great British game show, which I'm very excited about. But next, here's an imponderable for you. Is it ever too late to start a new career? We'll find about a woman that became a billionaire in her 50s. And also, is it OK to call towns in Britain god-awful? If so, which ones are they? Plus another great British game show. Tonight it's called Let's Face It. Celebrities seen in objects like planks of wood. You couldn't make it up. It's going to be lots of fun. I'll see you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio. On digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
This may be a different one. The last
So it's our first anniversary. A lovely package arrived this week, and I was very, very touched, let me tell you. But first of all, some very, very nice chocolates, and that was from gorgeous Annette. So thank you so much, Annette, for your lovely card, and also your very, very kind chocolate for our year's anniversary. And how about this from... lovely. I better get this right because, you know, my eyesight is so bad these days. It's, I think it's Ace Smith. Would you say, how good is your... how good is your eyesight?
My eyesight's... A-Y-S-E. Ace.
How would you pronounce that? Ace?
Help. Ace. Yes, Ace, I think. Ace, A-Z.
Well, thank you so much for that.
Just a quick note to say that I absolutely love you. Sorry, absolutely love your show.
Yeah, more than that strong. So that's so nice. Lovely card with a cat on the front. I'm sending you a little duck I painted to celebrate Her Majesty's Jubilee. I hope you like it. Keep well and keep making these magnificent shows on GB News. From Ace Smith. Ace, thank you for this. And here is the duck that Ace actually painted.
How cool.
It's an official... GB News.
Love it. Really love it.
It's the mascot. And we are absolutely quackers about your gift.
Needs to go on the shelves behind you.
It definitely goes. That's right. It's part of GB history. It's going to go on the shelves. And
very good.
Ace, you're a very talented artist.
It could become a cult item.
Definitely. I think so.
That is amazing.
Cult is the word. Very, very talented are our viewers. So there you go. GB News mascot is that lovely duck. I think it needs a name. What should we call the duck? Should we call it Andrew?
After the prince.
Or Neil. Or Neil.
Or Neil. One or the other. I thought you get the reference. Well, look, let's just touch on a couple of stories before our game. Is it ever too late to change careers? Well, don't worry. I'm not about to leave GB News to study architecture, but some recent stories of late-in-life successes have got us thinking. Take, for example, Anne Bowden, who at the age of 54, which of course is not old, but it is later in life, she became the first woman in the UK to start a bank. And that bank is now valued at over $1 billion. So, when is it too late to change career, or is it ever too late to change career? Nicola?
Well, Christine said earlier, didn't you, that you going on I'm a Celebrity changed your career because it made you then be able to be a TV butterfly. So I don't know how old you was, and I won't ask, but, you know, you obviously had
about 50.
There you go. I mean, no, I think it's fabulous. I think, you know, I hope that it's not, there's never too late, because I definitely need to think of something else to do, because I need to make my millions still, so...
GB News presenter.
There you go. Give it to me.
Because you have sort of reinvented yourself over the years, haven't you?
Yeah, so I started as a page 3 girl, and now I'm sitting here, so...
Well, that's how I started as well. We've got that in common. Yeah, I was in one issue on a rainy Tuesday.
Didn't work.
Was it page 7 fella?
It wasn't. Well, yeah, it was a page. It was somewhere between the two.
Okay.
Well, it's important. You also, both of you, have had multiple careers, really, and you've even changed your politics in a sense, Neil, because you were a Conservative MP. Now you're the leader of UKIP, a rival party. So it's never too late to reinvent.
No, this is true, and I think I shall carry on reinventing myself. Who knows what is next on my agenda?
Green Party, maybe? SNP?
Well, I don't mean reinventing myself politically. I mean, my views actually have never changed. I mean, I joined the Anti-Common Market League in 1967 in anticipation of our joining what was then the European Economic Community in 1973. So it's the Conservative Party that changed over the years, not me.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. Many people feel that politically in the course of the pandemic and with wokeism, Christine, that they've stayed in the same place. It's just that the left have gone a bit bonkers.
Absolutely. I mean, just to go back to this woman that you started with, I mean, she's truly amazing, Anne Bowden. Do read her story. She said, I was a 5-foot, middle-aged Welsh woman who'd never been an entrepreneur, wandering around the city, knocking on doors, saying, I'm going to start a bank.
Well, I think maybe I'll start a bank, and then we need never worry about money
Hamilton
again.
Bank. Hashtag your money's safe with us.
But, I mean,
will that age well?
I don't think that will work. But I mean, her story is truly amazing. She's got an MBE for her services to financial technology, and it's a bank for the people who bank, who bank with her, rather than a bank for the bankers.
Yeah,
that's her secret.
Well, there you go. If you are watching here at GB News, we are not ageist. So if you're older and you've got something you want to do, just crack on and do it, and don't let anyone stop you. Don't forget, a year ago, we started a news channel, and it's going quite well. Look, just a quick word on this, because a Tory MP got in trouble for calling a couple of British towns god-awful. Can you call British places god-awful? I thought the charm of Britain is that we do slag off so many of our cities and towns.
I think you're being very kind. She needs naming. She's called Heather Wheeler.
Yes.
She's the Tory MP for
Resign.
South Derbyshire. And she described both Blackpool and Birmingham as god-awful. Now, I think that is totally unacceptable from her. She's a government minister, for goodness sake. I'd never heard of that.
There was a book released called Crap Towns.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes,
Wasn't
but it wasn't written by a government minister.
No,
I
but
think
isn't the
it's
point about
appalling.
us Brits that we sort of laugh at ourselves and that,
She shouldn't have said it.
Really? What do you think? I mean,
John Betjeman wrote that poem about Slough, didn't he? Come, friendly bombs, and fall on Slough. It isn't fit for humans now. Swarm over death. And he became poet laureate.
Yes, and there was a sort of comedian in the 80s, I think, that talked about a bomb in Coventry, which caused £1 million worth of improvements.
Well, and wasn't it... oh dear, I better not name his name in case I get it wrong, but Let's Bomb Russia. Who was that?
Oh, that was...
The Tory party conference. Carefully mentioned.
It wasn't Paul
Kenny Everett.
It was Paul.
Let's bomb Russia.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Nicola,
he was right.
Care to name Britain's crappiest towns?
I didn't like living in Maidstone.
Ooh.
I've lived loads because my husband was a footballer. I moved around with him, and I've lived in quite a lot of places. And Maidstone wasn't my favourite.
I think Maidstone would think they were quite classy.
Yeah, probably right. She'll give you a handbagging when she sees you. But look, it's all about opinions, isn't it? It's time now for our Great British Game Show.
Oh dear.
And after a breeder said he saw Elvis Presley's face on his horse's neck, it got us to thinking about other times when famous faces appeared in unlikely locations. So it's time to play a game of Let's Face It. That's right, you at home and my panel in the studio must identify the celebrity from this rather obscure image. So let's start with celebrity number one. Let's take a look. Right, now, who could that be? Which celebrity is
Dougal
that?
the dog. It's Dougal the dog from the Magic Roundabout.
It is Dougal-esque, but no, it's a female actress who starred in Sister Act.
Whoopi Goldberg.
It is Whoopi Goldberg. Yeah. Absolutely, there she is. Yeah. Uncanny.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Funny enough, they both make me cry, so who knew? How about our next celebrity? Who could this be? It's a slice of bacon. Yeah. And we'll just ask you to look at the right-hand side of the piece of bacon.
Looks like a hedgehog.
Yes, if you look, it's a face in profile with a quiff at the front.
Is it Elvis?
It is, the sideburns.
Oh,
Elvis
yes.
Presley.
With the quiff at the back.
Okay.
Oh, God, yeah.
Which former US president is in this toast?
Lincoln.
You've got the ears on the side, short haircut at the top, a very recent president.
Obama.
It is Barack Obama.
Not
Obama toast.
likeness.
Obama is toast. How about our next rather scary individual, famous for battles in space?
Darth Vader.
Yes, well done. That is a Darth Vader steak.
Vader, sorry.
Cooked medium rare. OK, how about this one? Another celebrity. Another former president.
Donald Trump.
It is. It's a very yellow version of the Donald. Brilliant stuff. OK, how about let's power through a couple more. A princess.
Kate.
She'll be queen one day, Kate Middleton. Kate Middleton jelly bean. That's a jelly bean. How about a tape measure? DIY tape measure, yes. It is Mr. T. Actually, let's just do that. Let's power through the last two because they're hilarious. We've got a Dave Grohl kettle. Oh, what's that? Who's that? Oh, that's Mother Teresa's cinnamon roll.
Oh, gosh.
That's a bit harsh. Let's have just give me the reveals as well. That is Dave Grohl in a kettle, courtesy of Carl Bettel, our digital genius. And last but not least, it's Iggy Pop, and it's a face in his tummy. Thanks to my brilliant panel helping us to celebrate a year of GB News. Thanks to all of you, because we're nothing without you, for watching this programme and for watching the channel. Keep it GB News, and let's have many years together. Love you loads. Stick around for headliners.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, the UK is looking mostly dry with sunny spells and light winds, but with rain in the northwest. Let's look at the detail. So a dry start then for the southwest of England with light winds. There will be some cloud about, but this should lift and break up through the morning with sunny spells becoming more widespread. Across London and the southeast of England, a fine start to the day with more in the way of sunshine than areas further west. Variable amounts of cloud for South Wales with 1 or 2 light showers towards the north, but dry for most with light winds. For the northwest of England, there'll be a scattering of showers moving in off the Irish Sea during the morning. However, the showers will be light and there will be sunny spells in between. A chilly start in some rural spots across the northeast of England, but otherwise a fine and dry morning with temperatures soon rising and fair weather cloud bubbling up in the June sunshine. A cloudier start to the day though for southern Scotland, especially toward the west, where some light showery outbreaks of rain are possible. Driest and brightest towards Fife and East Lothian. A largely dry morning for Northern Ireland with variable amounts of cloud, some bright or sunny spells, light winds and the chance of a few showers in the north and west. Staying dry then across much of the UK throughout Monday, but cloud and rain in the northwest continuing to spread eastward.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio. On digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons